Okay, we are live, sir. So good evening and namaste to all our viewers. This is Saurabh Koshal, Director Smart Circuits Innovation Private Limited. Again, we are here with a new session that is a live interactive session with a special guest today, Dr. C. Rajagopal Singh and Mitul sir from Dikshant Group. So let me give a introduction or a brief profile about Dr. Singh. So firstly, sir, welcome on our show, sir, on this live interactive show. So
Yeah.
welcome and
Thank
good
you, Saurabh.
evening.
Good
So
evening.
Dr. Singh has done his PhD from University College London, UK, Masters of Environmental Planning and Architecture from New Delhi, and Bachelors of Engineering from Sardar Patel University, Gujarat. He is an alumni of the Scindia School, Gwalior. Dr. Singh is a water resource planning and management expert with a strategic mindset for a sustainable resource management. With over 20 years of extensive experience in the field of policies, planning, implementation, and monitoring of water resources, environmental and infrastructure projects, out of which 15 years has been working with the government agencies around the world on the various development and advisory projects. Currently working with the World Bank as a senior water resource specialist and involved in the policy dialogue with the government of India as well as the states in the various aspects of water resources development and management. He is currently involved in many flagship water resource management projects, includes National Hydrology Project, Dam Rehabilitation Projects and Improvement Projects, and National Ganga River Project. His research paper has been published in lots of international and national journal. So welcome once again, sir, on this live interactive session. And on the other hand, we have Mr. Mitul Dikshit, sir, who is the chairman of Dikshant Group of Schools, Jekpur. Welcome, Mr. Mitul Dikshit, sir, on our live interactive session. And he will also moderate this session along with me. So over to Mitul, sir. Please start this session, sir.
Thank you, Saurabh, and a very warm welcome. Raju, I'll call you because I can't call him Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh was the name of our principal, and so coming to with all due respect to Rajgopal or Raju, who was fondly called, and it's such a good feeling to connect with you, Raju, and I mean the kind of work you've been doing over the years is exceptional, and अभी तो मेरे ख्याल से सबको आपके हाथ जोड़ने पड़ेंगे और because water is something which is really water resource management is something which is the need of the hour. So the first question is a very personal question because when Saurabh introduced you as of course I know the answer, but when he said Dr. C. Rajgopal Singh, what does C stand for? Chabumbum, I remember, but would you please tell everybody about why do you use Chabumbum?
Thanks, Saurabh and Mitul, for having me. Before going into it, you guys are doing a fabulous job. In the era of COVID-19 nowadays, the live interaction sections you have been doing are excellent. So well done, and keep doing the excellent job. Mitul, I think you already pronounced it, and to give you credit, I think you pronounced it right. It's Chapungbang. That's my surname. I know many people in school, as well as currently, people have issue with pronouncing my name, the Chapungbang part. So normally I go with the middle one, that's Rajgopal, or Raju, as a lot of people call me. Yeah, it's Chapungbang, Mitul.
So I remember, wasn't it the name of your village?
No, Chapungbam is the clan, basically.
Okay.
Yes, Rajgopal is my given name, and Singh is denoting the class in Manipur. We have 3 class, so we are the commonwealth class, basically.
And let me also tell you that I just looked at my mobile. It's on Facebook, live on Facebook, and I saw Mr. Vikas Gupta also, who's a big fan of yours and who's joined us for this conversation.
Okay. So, hi, Vikas.
So okay, so starting with, would you take us through your journey in terms of I still remember you joined Scindia as in class 7th.
Seventh, yes.
And you joined in as a government scholar, right? So
Yeah.
how did you get this government scholarship? Because it's very relevant, Raju, talking about these things, because the kind of when you make use of whatever opportunities you get in life, and that's very, because this lot of students would be uh, listening to this conversation, and it's important how you make use of the opportunities, and you are a brilliant example of the way, if I look at your profile all these years, of course starting from a school like Sindhya, where you got an opportunity and you made the most out of that opportunity, being an excellent sportsman, as well as did exceptionally well in academics at school. So there were very few of us, who were so balanced and who had that all round. Uh, who were all rounders.
Yeah. Thanks, Mitul. To be very honest, I was very fortunate to be in India. So I'm not very sure that scheme still exists today in government or not. But during those old days in my time, there happens to be a government scholarship at the national level, and we would participate in that. And I think 500 students were selected, and they were sent all over the public schools in India. So Doon had a couple of them, Scindia has a couple of them, Mayo, SKV, all the big names, residential schools were given a seat or two by the government on that. So I happened to appear that, and fortunately, I secured a second position at the national level. One first happens to be a girl, and she went to MGD. So from the boy, I was the first, and it's a very funny thing where I landed up in India. So at that time, I think Doon was number one, and being number one in boy, I was allocated Doon. And at that time, coming from a small place like Manipur, Imphal, we have no, that was a time where we don't have internet or anything. We don't know what Doon School is, or we don't know what Scindia is. We just know, like, whatever people say about it. So I have an uncle, he worked in education sector, and he was going for a meeting to Delhi. So my father happened to tell him, like, I got a government scholarship. You have to go to the Ministry of HRD and submit blah, blah, all these papers and all. So he went there, and somehow he had the feeling that Scindia was better than Doon. And he went over there, and the person who came third, he was allocated Scindia, and he wanted to go to Doon. And their parents was also there, and he did an exchange, and he selected Scindia for me. And the gentleman name was Basant. He went to Doon. But somehow till now, I'm very thankful to my uncle that he selected Scindia, and I couldn't meet you, and I'm whatever I'm today. The foundation was given by Scindia. So I don't know how he made that judgment, but I think it was a life changing for me. And I still, when I meet him, I always narrate this story and always thank him on that. So Scindia was a very interesting a journey over there, coming from a small town. The big challenge I had was I had completely no idea how to speak Hindi when I come in India at 7th class. Okay, coming from Northeast, we don't generally speak Hindi. We do speak English, but Hindi was a challenge. But everybody helped a lot. Mr. Dixit helped me a lot, Mitul. Dixit sir was there, Atmaram sir was there, Saxena sir was there. They all helped me a lot. I'm going to talk with my housemaster also. One very interesting happened in India when I joined in. I can't speak a single word of Hindi. So I was forced to speak Hindi. If not, then I would go for a round in the breakfast time. And I always go for a round for continuous 1 or 2 weeks. And my housemaster see that things are not improving. So he changed the thing around. It was very interesting. He told everybody that who is going to speak to me in Hindi, in English, will go for a round. So everybody started to speak me in Hindi, and I was forced to learn Hindi, and somehow or the other, I somehow managed to learn Hindi, and today not very good, but I could converse in Hindi very well. That was a good achievement. But other than that, I have a very good foundation built in Scindia. And as Mitul has rightly said, what I learned from Scindia is about, uh, you getting a all-round perspective, right? You have to know everything. You have to be good in sports. You have to be, good in academics. You have to be good in extracurricular activity. You have to be good in making friends, handling the situation. You may not be the brightest in that, but you are given an exposure to the all-round situation, and that is where till today, that particular learning helps a lot. So I would say, and for many of the students who will be looking, please concentrate on the schooling. Schooling is where you make your foundation, basically. So whenever you build a house, foundation is the most important aspect. I know things will go here and there, but once you have a good foundation, it makes half the work is done. Not only that, you make good friends like Mitul, and many places wherever you go, you have good friends in Scindia school alumni, and people are there as family to help you wherever you are having issues. So this was a journey where, from a small township, you are exposed to one of the best school in India, and it was life changing for me. And I learned a lot about there. And the good part again over there was people like Mitul, and we have many batch. I was never feeling homesick or coming from a northeastern. You're not never been singled out. You're always part of them, and you were one team as a whole. And that was one thing which is very good in Scindia. And let me mention one thing very important about Scindia, and which I rejoice till today is everybody believes in God, but in Scindia we don't worship an idol. We worship sunset. So everybody is equal over there. We call it as Astachal, and I think Mitul knows very well. And that is the prayer time where we do the prayer, and we don't have any idol or any statue to worship, but we look at the sunset and we worship. So everybody is equal in the school, and that has been one of the trademark of Scindia, where everybody is treated equal. And that has been a good life changing. But again, Mitul, I wasn't that enterprising. I was thinking after my school, I will do my civil engineering. That's how I selected civil engineering, because it was easy to get a government job in Manipur, and I'll go and settle in Manipur. That was as simple as what I thought. So at that time, computer was the in thing. When we started, passing school and going to. So I got admission for computer engineering in Sardar Patel University, Gujarat, but I changed it to civil. Right. So at the time, there was a big demand for computers, and civil nobody demanded at the time, because that was the time where construction wasn't happening. The real estate boom wasn't there. So civil engineering seat would be left empty. So I went to my administrator and said, "What is the process for changing the stream?" He says, "What do you want to change?" I said, "I want to change from computer science to civil." And he says, are you mad? Because people are running after computer engineering, and you want to change it." So I went and put in a notice board, and then there was a big queue in my hostel room who wanted to change. Somehow I selected one, I changed into civil engineering. But by the time I pass out my civil engineering, again, things back home in my hometown, we have a insurgency issue over there. Things were quite bad. So my parents, after me going back to Manipur, the first thing my mother told me was, "Things are not very good over here. Do whatever you feel like, but go out of Manipur for higher education or whatever you want to do." So somehow I landed up in School of Planning and Architecture, doing my master's in environmental planning. And again, this was again a very different course which I have attended. We don't have any textbook in School of Planning and Architecture, especially in environment planning. all the faculty except for some resident faculty, all were visiting faculties. So we had people from planning commission at the time coming and teaching about financial planning. We have the Delhi Development Authority chairperson coming and teaching about how housing planning and town plannings have been done. We have the senior officials of Pollution Control Board coming and talking about the practical aspect of pollution control. So it was a very interesting course where you have been taught by the people who are practicing rather than going into books. So that interests me going into environment. And I started after my master's, I started my career as a person working in environment with a Dutch firm called Wetlands International. I worked for 7 years in the South Asia region, and we worked especially on conservation of water bodies, conservation of wetlands, and I work on many interesting projects. But somehow I thought like something is not right. I need to do something. And I happened to get a chance to do my PhD in UCL, University College London. And UCL was one of the best college at the time. I think number 7 in the top ranking of the world. And again, the exposure you have in University College London was entirely different. The most interesting aspect when I landed in London for my PhD was the first day when I was there, I went to meet my professor. And he was in charge for inducting new students, so he was very busy. So there was a small kid saying that, Rajgopal, let's meet. And the address, to my surprise, was an address of a bar nearby the college. So coming from India, you would never think to sit down and have a beer on the first day with your professor, right? So the first thing, I met him in a bar, and he welcomed me to London, and he said, "Let me be the first person to buy you a beer in London." So it was a very life-changing over there. The relation of how a student and a teacher is maintained over there, and how you do your PhD research, and what opportunity they gave you. They even gave you opportunity to teach in the university also. So it was a life-changing, aspect over there. So it's a very sweet journey for me so far. Everything was setting on to right. So I was thinking that I'll stay in London and start my career working in the water sector. But somehow, we are never alone. So my parents wasn't very comfortable me staying in London. And above that, my wife was feeling homesick, coming from a society which is, full of relatives and chirping around, sitting idly in London for 5 years with the two, we don't have a kid at that time, with two people in the room. So it was very homesick for my wife. So we planned to go back to India. And that's how I landed up in a company called DHI. It's one of the best company, top 2 company in the world for water management. I become the director in India. And somehow from there on, I went to join World Bank. And that's where here I'm today. It's been a very good journey. But again, I'm talking about the good part. But still, there are ups and downs in the whole journey. All the aspects like, joining DHI or coming to World Banks are not that smooth. You have to really work hard. But again, what I said was the foundation given in India, where you have been taught to fight all throughout and never lose it, really help you in selling through. Yep, Mitul, that's the journey.
You also found a way because, talking about, being sent for these rounds at the fields.
Yeah.
I'm sure, after you joined in July, within a month's time, you must have got over it because, your footballing qualities must have been noticed and you would have got back to the track. So similarly, you always find a way, with the kind of, exceptional talent you have. So you always find a way to come back. I mean, I'm sure, you know, the initial uh, ordeals, you know, where you might have been taking round. The moment, you know, people realize that this is Raj Gopal Singh and he's going to make to the football school soccer team as well as the house soccer team, everything finishes there. You know, the importance or relevance of sports at a public school.
I think, Mitul, you're right. I've been in Delhi for quite some time, and we have many good schools in Delhi. We have the DPS, and we have many good schools. And I have many colleagues, sons and daughter studying over there. What I feel, I think what they are missing out and what we have gained in India is that the games that we play over there, everybody is compulsory to play games. So what I see is that physically is good for us, but again, mentally is also very good. Once the exhaustion goes in sweats and the precipitations out, you're clear in your mind and you can concentrate more on your studies. So that was what I have been seeing. So in India, I think the games that has been made compulsory, I'm not very sure whether it is compulsory now or not.
Yes.
But in our time, it was a good chance to learn. And not only that, you learn good skills when you're playing cricket or where you're playing football. You learn good skill which come handy in your life again. Right.
I think over there, I think also, when we talk about, the whole learning process, and even now I realize it, and even at that point of time, over the years, I realized that, most of the times, I don't know about you, but the afternoon classes, I mean, the football season was during the rainy season. And I mean, those last two classes after lunch, it was more of praying for, praying for not to rain or the fields getting flooded. And also about majority of the games, the kind of application of mind which is required while playing cricket or football or any hockey or any other game. The application of mind is much more as compared to what you do in the classroom, doing your mathematics or taking up your science classes or any other thing, because it's the application of mind.
Exactly. There was an incident which N.K. Tiwari taught me. It was a football match, and he was the referee. And I was taking a kick, and it was raining, so it went over the post, just touching the post and outside. And I was like, I missed it out. And he came and said, Raj, your calculation was right, but you didn't apply physics into it. He said, the ball is wet, so you should have spin it little harder, so that it dips more, because when the ball is wet, it then it spin less and it goes the trajectory is flat. So he came to me and said, your application of physics in thinking was wrong. Your idea was right, but your application was wrong. So there was, in everything what we do, there's always something to learn.
Yeah, so, of course. I mean, I'll take that opportunity to tell you about this incident. We played one of the house matches, in grade 12. You remember Madhav versus Daulat, A group, and I mean, in that match, both of us scored, and the first goal was scored by me, and that was out of a free kick. Yeah. And the application of mine was that you had the school soccer goalkeeper, Sudarshan Malpani.
Exactly.
And I was also observing him, and at the last moment, he jumped before I kicked. So I mean, he'd already made a jump, because I stopped myself in terms of, I was seeing his movement, and I kicked and he jumped later on. So that's how I ended up scoring the goal. And that's the other part, where you went on to, make an equalizer, but somehow, lost your way to the semi-finals. I think you didn't.
I think we draw in that match, and somehow I think we lost to Ranoji or something in the. Somewhere I could not remember. Yeah.
So I mean, that was pure application of mind,
Exactly.
Where uh, I mean, when you talk about physics, the general application, since I don't come from the science background, I will not quote about that. So, how was it, Raju, coming back to it? How was it? Was it a conscious decision to get into to take up, environmental planning and at the School of Planning and Architecture?
Interesting question. When I was doing my engineering, we have electives, and I took environment electives. And somehow there was an interest in me about the environment. I don't know, maybe cultivated from my father, who happens to always watch Discovery Channel and read books about animals and environment. Somehow I have that, and I started taking 2-3 electives on environment in my engineering, and it really keep me thinking, like, environment is one area, and the big challenge at that time was, in India, environmental awareness was not much there at that time. And the college where I did my civil engineering, we had our principal, Mr. Swadas. He was the first environmental engineer in India. So somehow it culminated in my mind. And when I was choosing for my master's, I was interested in doing planning. We had 4 or 5 subjects in planning, and then I said, "No, I'll go for environment." Something I know this is a unknown area, but I was thinking that this will be quite interesting in me. But as we go ahead now, I think people are quite aware about environment. People talk about environment. Even students at the very kindergarten level knows about environment, plantation of trees and all. At that time, it was just the starting off. Somehow I had that inclination for the nature, and it forced me towards that.
So, how I mean, there's some students also who would be joining us in a while who, with some questions. How important, because I have to tell you more about these sessions. I have we've done these sessions with at least 4 or 5 people, and the relevance of we've been talking about the relevance of getting into the right institutes, right places, the colleges, universities, and also getting into when you talked about getting into a good internship where you start your career from. How important do you think that played in your career?
I think you're bang on. So, institution plays a very important role in shaping your career, because if you are not given the opportunity, then your talent will not be even discovered, right? So, my first job was after my master's in School of Planning and Architecture. So the last semester was about doing a thesis, a 6-month thesis. And I take up a thesis in my hometown. There's a lake called Loktak, the management perspective to that. And the firm I joined afterwards was also having a huge project, a research project worth, I think, $9 million. So I went as an internship over there. So I did my, I got my data, I got my advice for my dissertation, and my dissertation was very relevant to their project. So I was exposed to a lot of things. As a student, you are more into books and academia. But when you go to an internship where you're doing a live project with an international firm, has an international perspective, the way you are exposed is tremendous. So when I come back and submitted a thesis, the thesis was totally a different thesis. It was very practical. My teachers were very happy with the thesis. It was relevant. And the good part was, once my thesis was over, even before I graduated, I got an opportunity offered by the company to work with them. So 2 things is, you are from a reputed college like School of Planning and Architecture. that was the reason why this company accepted me as a what you call intern, right? So having a good exposure, good college is very important to start your career. One thing over here is schooling, no doubt, is a foundation, has to be very good, no doubt about that. Second is again, there are stages. So what I would say is if you're planning to do a graduation, then you do a master's, then you do an academics PhD, you can go with the same institution. But if you're planning to do a graduation and do a job, then select a college which give you internship, which expose you to the market, job market where your talent is exposed. But if you're planning to do a master's, not join a job, then you don't need that exposure because you're going to go to another college. So what you need as a student, what my advice will be, think about when you want to go to the market to do a job, either after your graduation or master's or PhD, select an institution which can give you an exposure to the job market. Right. So that's very important over here. Because
that is also about a couple of them, majority of them, when you're looking at getting into an engineering college, like Raju, with you also, Sardar Patel, I mean, is a good college, but it would not be, I mean, for any of the G aspirants, who would be preparing. I mean, and these days, during our time, it was just about, getting out of school and getting into an engineering college rather than, preparing or probably going to these tuition centers or probably, coaching centers. We didn't have that option. But in terms of, getting into a college also, I mean, it's a great thing, not many people would understand that, coming out of a boarding school, a public school where, you're engaged the whole year. It's not that you would straight away get into an IIT or, BITS Pilani with a better ranking. But even in your case, if you look at it, I mean, coming from a decent engineering college, which is not a college, which is a regional engineering college, I believe.
It's sort of a sandwich between IIT and regional engineering college. It has a similar course structure to IITs. It's supposed to be a part of the Birla group, BITS, but it was taken over by a group of people from Gujarat who runs that what you call a college.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that it's below IIT because now IITs also, there are number of IITs which don't have faculty and they're named IITs but they hardly have a faculty with them. So in terms of choosing a college, a good regional engineering college, but because since when you just do your BTech, I mean, it's not something which is maybe you do your BTech, do a couple of years, I mean, join an organization, but you would always end up doing your management or probably your masters. So you do have an opportunity of getting into a decent engineering college and moving on. The moment you got an opportunity, you got into School of Planning and Architecture, which I have immense respect for, and is one of the best in the entire country. And then of course your background about going to UCL to do your PhD. So I'm sorry, I was adding those points from your side which are very relevant for children today.
I think Mitul, I think you got a very point over here that it's not compulsory that you have to be in IITs or IIMs that you have to be successful, right? So there are many successful businessmen to technocrats to administrators and all who are not from IITs and IIM, right? So it all depends upon how you shape your own career and how you choose your path. The only thing is very important after till 12 people are confused a little bit about where to go, but to get a good career advice and have a structured way to approach your career. that after 12, if you don't go to IIT, it's not that, your career is finished, but you can shape it the way, like, I have tried in my case where, from, Mitul, as you said, from a reasonably good college, but not the IITs, to coming to a school of planning and architecture to an UCL where, the pyramid increases in that. So you can shape yourself in a way that you excel in life. It's not that you have to be in the IITs or IIM for that.
I mean, I agree with that, because the last conversation I was having, I was talking to Dr. Ranjit Chaudhary and telling him that, grade 10th, I had this target of, just scoring 60% because I always knew that, I'm going to continue in grade 11th in the same school, and class 12 percentages are going to matter. So it's similar, it's a similar kind of an intelligence which you'll use to get into a college, and then you know that you're doing your masters, so get into the right college. But working with working with the first organization which you join, your internship and the people you work with is very, very relevant. That's the point I was trying to make.
That's very important, because the problem is what we learn in Indian academic system is a lot of good foundations in theories and concepts, but when you go to work, it's the applications. So this is where it becomes very important, because many organizations, good organizations, doesn't allow freshers or even 3-4 year experience to take on challenges. They become, subordinate or supporting staff to many of the senior people. But to my luck, this organization, being an international organization, they always maintain a very lean structure. Like, we run around about 40 projects, and we were around about only 10-12 people. And right from the beginning, I had the exposure to run projects and work on policy dialogues with the government. So that really changed the concept, how you work with.
I call it the de-learning process. Once you get out of your degree and get into an organization, the first couple of years you have to de-learn what you've learned during your college or professional studies. Anyway, I'll leave you on to Siddhant.
Sure.
Let me welcome Siddhant, and Raju, you'll love talking to this chap. He's a brilliant guy, and at times he can ask questions, which no one has, both he and his brother, no one has an answer. So over to you, Siddhant.
Yeah, so we have Siddhant from Dikshant International School. Siddhant, yeah, please go ahead with your questions.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I would like to ask you, what is the best way to encourage marginal farmers to set aside a part of their land for water conservation measures like digging of ditches and ponds, which will not only help them but their whole community in times of drought in maintaining a steady income?
Okay, Siddhant, excellent question. I think you have done a lot of reading, I think. So when we talk about water, let me give you a little bit background about water management in India. So when we do water management, we look for two extremes. One is called flood and one is called drought. Okay. And in India, we have both. In many places, we have floods. In many places, we have drought. So the unfortunate part of India is that the amount of water we have, the distribution is not uniform. In some places, we have very good intense rainfall. In some, we don't have it. So, and those are the area where droughts are happening. Okay, so when we try to tackle drought can be tackled in many forms, right? And nowadays, with the climate change coming in, the phenomena of drought is increasing in many parts of the country. And I would say, management of drought can be done at the government level, where you have large infrastructures, construction like dams and barrages and all help the farmer. And other way is, decentralizing and going at the community level. So both are excellent way of doing it. And as you rightly said, many farmers in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Maharashtra have formed self-help groups, okay, communities, and they are working towards this. Right. So they are trying to have create ponds by pulling lanes where they store water during the rainfall, and they use those water when the rainfall exceeds. The problem, Siddhant, in India is rainfall is happening only in 2 or 3 months. So out of 12 months, you have rainfall for 2 or 3 months, but for the rest of 8, 9 months, there's no rainfall. So somehow you have to cultivate the culture of storage so that whatever is stored, whatever is fallen in this 2 or 3 months, you store it and you use that for the rest of the 8, 9 months. This has been the way that we have been managing in India. Going back to the government initiative, I'll come back to your marginal worker to that. Government has taken many initiatives in that. So in India has large dams, medium dam, and small dam. Large dam are huge infrastructures. So India has more than 5,200 dams. So this is the third largest number in the world. China has around about 20,000. America, US has around about 9,500. And the third is India, which is 5,200 large dam. But again, if you look at this large infrastructure and the amount we are storing, the number of population is so big. So the denominator, when we divide, per person availability of water is very less. Okay, if you look at these large infrastructures, the data I remember correctly is in a year, not in a year, basically in this storage, one person per capita, we call it as per capita availability, is only 200 meter cube. Okay, meter cube is like, a cubic meter you fill in the water. So we measure in meter cube. So India में एक आदमी को जितना स्टोरेज है गवर्नमेंट के जो बनाया है दाम है इससे 200 है. Whereas South Africa, Mexico जैसा country में the availability is 1,000. In Australia and in United States, the availability is around about 5,000 meter cube. Because India में we have a lot of storage initiated by the government, but the population is so big that it cannot cater. So the availability is very less. And dam हर जगह तो बना नहीं सकते हैं, suitability भी है. So many of this arid area में we don't have big large dams. Many are there, but the challenge is that we don't have in drought prone area dams होते हुए भी पहले सूख जाते हैं. So that is where what you said about community initiatives have been taken up. Like, so there are a lot of good examples in this drought hit area. In Maharashtra है, Karnataka है, Tamil Nadu में initiatives लिया गया है. ठीक है. So the problem what you said about putting aside land as a government initiative, because land belongs to the farmers. It doesn't belong to the government. So as a policy, the state government nor the central government cannot come with a policy. But at the community level, these practices are happening. Like, so if you go to many of these states, तुम जाके Google में देखना, zoom करके, so you will find for every village, they will always earmark areas where they can store this water. What you call in West Bengal, they call it pukar. In Manipur, we call it pukri. And then in Tamil Nadu, I cannot remember what they call it. So this is in practice. But nowadays, what is happening is this kind of practice, these are traditional practice. Okay. But with the coming growing population, there's also challenges in it. पोल्यूशन हो जाते हैं इस एरिया, जो आपने कंजर्व करके रखा हुआ पॉन्ड है, तालाब है, when it become polluted, you can't use it at all, right? So these challenges are also coming with the enormous population increases. पहले ट्रेडिशन में if you go to गुजरात, ऐसा स्ट्रक्चर जो तालाब होता है, तालाब के बीच में आप देखो हमेशा एक मंदिर लगा रहेगा, ठीक है? So it's a very good way traditionally management. So when you have this mandir in the middle of a talab, people will not wash clothes, people will not do dirty thing over there in the respect of the god. That is how they conserve it. But all this kind of traditional conservation has been discontinued in the recent past. That's how these droughts are happening. If you look at the ancient droughts, they have many ways to tackle. But now, I think there is a good government initiative of financing, because land has to be pulled from the farmer, as you rightly said. But to build this kind of structures and maintain it, there are programs run at the government level to support this. Okay, so you are right in pointing out that the suggestion you are putting is very much in practice in many drought prone area where you don't have large dam or large infrastructures. ये practice चल रहा है, but again there's always challenge. If you look at another aspect, unlike many other country, जो हमारा farmer के पास जो जमीन है बड़े नहीं होते हैं, छोटे छोटे जमीन होते हैं, ठीक है? So it is not adequate even for them to produce enough to sustain their family. उसमें से भी आधा दे देंगे तो they will be in a real bad shape. So land का जो ownership है, that also depends a lot on those kind of initiatives. But again, we have this what they call water user association बोलते हैं, ठीक है? फार्मर्स जितना भी होते हैं गवर्नमेंट लेवल पे इनिशिएट करके एट द लोकल लेवल सब फार्मर्स मिला के ये इंस्टीट्यूशंस वो लोग बनाते हैं, ठीक है? यूजर्स ग्रुप्स बनाते हैं एंड दे टेक डिसीजंस. So this has been continued, and I perfectly agree with you. This is an excellent solution, and not only that, this has been practiced in many parts of the country. The only thing is we need to know how to conserve it well. इसमें थोड़ा साइंस भी जाना पड़ेगा so that you identify the right place कहाँ पे आपको कंजर्व करना है, क्योंकि हर जगह पे आप कंजर्व नहीं कर सकते हैं, ठीक है? पूरा आप तालाब बनाएंगे, अगर सोइल कैपेसिटी होल्ड करने के लिए नहीं है तो पूरा परकोलेट होकर ग्राउंड वाटर में चले जाएंगे, ठीक है? नहीं तो अगर सम एरिया यू हैव सॉल्ट एंड एवरीथिंग देन इट गेट पॉल्यूटेड. सो थोड़ा सा साइंस लगा के you need to find out the right places, and this kind of initiative can be taken. I hope that answers you, right, Siddhant?
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir.
All right, Siddhant. So thank you very much. And in the meantime, one more student will join us. Mitul sir.
Yeah. Mitul, you're muted.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I have this question about, and Raju, I warned you in the beginning that it's
I
a
know.
very political question, and of course I didn't tell you about this question. I mean, there was this Sadhguru had started with this, joining of rivers project, and there was a huge campaign. Did it make sense did it make sense for joining the rivers? Because I personally believe, and whatever I read about the whole project, it didn't make sense to me in terms of changing the natural course of the rivers or joining all the rivers. What is your comment on it?
So that would be my personal note on this. So I was telling Siddhant also, the unfortunate part of India is we have adequate rainfall, but it varies spatially. ठीक है, कुछ जगह पे we don't have uniform rainfall. Some area we have adequate rainfall. some area we have very scanty rainfall. One of a very thinking leader in water management, he said something good about flood. I know flood is not good because it damages life, property, and everything. But what he said was, if flood is happening, you're 100% sure that pani to hai, right? So in places like desert or the sub-Saharan or the Gulf country, the big challenge is they don't have water. But in India, if we have flood, it confirms that we have water in some part of the country. Now it's about how we manage that flood by minimizing the the harmfulness of the flood and using that water in the lean season where we don't have water, right? Rainfall happens only in three months in a year, but the remaining 9 months we are without water. So it's about storing whatever possible in those 3 months and using it for the rest 9 months. So this is the concept where many of our technocrats and engineers idea is that there are many rivers in India. Mainly आप ये देख लो गंगा ब्रह्मपुत्र है. These are huge river. The flow, the quantum of flow is enormous, right? Especially during the flood, it's gigantic, flow over there. The idea of that is impossible to build dams as we come lower. Tarai region के नीचे आते हैं, the plan is so flat that you cannot have dams over there. So the idea is what my understanding, reading from whatever is available in the public domain, is that they want to divert this water where adequate flows are there in many of these rivers and divert to many of the flood-prone areas, which is an excellent thinking from a pure engineering perspective. But again, the unfortunate part about water is water management is not purely science. We have a human dimension to it. Okay, and now recently we have the environmental dimension also. So a lot of my understanding, I've not worked on this personally. My understanding, reading through whatever available in the public domain, is that when you divert water from one river system to another river system, so river flows in a catchment area. It doesn't go by political boundaries, right? It has a unit called catchment. It flows within that. So the idea of transferring from one catchment to another catchment is the idea about the interbasin transfer. What I understand is, which is again, no doubt a good idea. But when you transfer from one area to another, you are changing the ecosystems, right? There will be environmental consequences. There are consequences downstream also. Upstream में हम सोचते हैं कि पानी है, but river is one unit, right? In one area we might say that adequate है, यहाँ से transfer करके दूसरे जगह पे ले जाओ, but that water, उसका जो usability है वो downstream को भी है. So if we start diverting those water to another, there'll be less water going downstream. So downstream का जो ecosystem है, downstream का user है, that will also get impacted. One example, I'm not talking about interbasin transfer, just to get relevance to a project where I have some knowledge, is in Karnataka, there are a lot of large dams. Okay, sir, Mitul. Dam hai, huge catchment area hai, बारिश होता है, dam में पानी आता है, ठीक है? And this dam has a huge interest from the domestic supply, from irrigation supply, from industrial supply. Okay. Now upstream में, what people have done is they have done conservation program. छोटा छोटा check बना के, afforestation करके, they have done an excellent job. So what they have done is they have stopped all the flow upstream. Now dam में एक भी पानी नहीं आ रहा है. ठीक है. Now we have done an excellent job upstream. People are happy over there. Okay, their productivity has increased. You know, forest regenerate हो गया. But downstream में dam में पानी नहीं आ रहा है. And dam, there are hundreds and thousands of people dependent on the dam. उनके लिए तो एक big problem challenges हो गया है. So what I'm trying to do is, over here the concepts are good, but I think the overall impact assessment जो है and overall planning need to be done carefully so that tomorrow, in the benefit of somebody, we should not take away the what you call benefit of other people downstream are taking into which are already harvesting that. So, and water is a very interesting, because when we change the flow of a river, the entire ecosystem in the river changes, right? So when we talk about ecosystem, we talk about the fish, we talk about the plants, even the human being become part of that ecosystem. So downstream, there will be consequences. So it's not that in many parts of the world, it has been done, right? And it's by nature that, dams have been constructed because of that, because we stored, big amount of water during the, rainy season so that we can use afterwards. These are the same concept, but nowadays people are getting very much aware of the environmental consequences and the social consequences. It's good to have a good stakeholder consultations and assessment done before those kind of initiatives have been carried out.
Yeah.
So
you please unmute your mic.
We have Arjun also who's joined in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you ask your question?
Yeah, Arjun.
Welcome, Arjun. Arjun?
I think he's having some internet issue. So
Yeah, can you get somebody else?
yeah, sure, sir. Let me check, sir. So in the meantime, I have one question from the viewer side, sir. So let me take that question.
Sure.
So yeah, so the question is that as per the composite water index of Niti Aayog, which has revealed the horrifying situation of water scarcity in our country by 2030 and 2050, how do you see we would deal with this situation, because already the groundwater level has gone down and the arsenic content is too high to be potable? So your comment on this thing, sir.
I think let me give you more figure onto that, which is more alarming. Based on the water availability, in 1951, for one person, the water availability in India in 1951 was around about 5,100. Okay, वो reduce होके 1991 में 2000 आ गया है. From 5,100, it went to 2,200. And as per the projection, I think National Water Commission का है, ठीक है? I think that's the data I have right now. It is reducing to, in 2025, 1,300, and in 2050 it is reducing to 1,100. Okay, this is just the availability. Now the big challenge, what you rightly said, and it was highlighted in the Niti Aayog, is the quality also. Okay. So if you look at many of the general data available in the public domain, almost all the rivers in India are polluted. So the idea is, if this kind of water is available, but if it is not potable, highly polluted, then what's the point in it? So there's a big challenge, alarming challenge, as you rightly said, going forward on the availability the quantum of ability, and both the quality and the quantity. There's a big alarming challenges into it, right? But it's not the end to it. There are policy interventions, there are engineering solutions that are possible where we can, with this water, we can easily survive and thrive with good development. If you look at Israel, if you look at the Gulf country, where the water availability is much lesser than this, the economic development and the life is very good over there, the quality of life. There are a lot of initiatives, what I understand, taken up by the government in doing so. One is they are trying to change the pollution aspect. They're having a lot of policies coming into it. They're having big initiative in groundwater management. So a lot of initiatives have been taken. One big initiative what Government of India has taken is management of water has been very complex in India. We have a central and a state system over here. ठीक है, and पहले भी बोला था मितुल को, water doesn't flow in the political boundary, it has its own boundary. ठीक है, तो कोई भी river system ले लो और ground water में जो आप बोल रहे aquifer ले लो, it can be multi states. ठीक है, and then the problem we are facing at present is management are done at the state level. Water is a state subject by the constitutions, and management are done at the state level. So the problem is we don't have a comprehensive planning at the holistic level, right? So one planning of one state is contradicting with the planning way with another state. So आप एग्जाम्पल ले लीजिए, कोई कृष्णा रिवर है, तो महाराष्ट्र भी है, इसमें कर्नाटका भी है, आंध्र भी है, तेलंगाना भी है, ठीक है? So every four state has their own way of managing system. So what I think Government of India, what my understanding working with them is they are initiating that planning should be done at a basin level encompassing all the four states, but management can be done locally. तो पहले क्या होता था, प्लानिंग भी हम जो तेलंगाना करते थे, आंध्र को मालूम नहीं, आंध्र जो करते थे महाराष्ट्र को मालूम नहीं. So the idea is to have a holistic approach, do a holistic planning, but management can be done at the state level. There is one initiative they are coming into it. Another initiative is they are doing big time in groundwater management. जो groundwater storage है, उसको accelerate और उसको increase करने के लिए there are a lot of initiatives been taken. Conservation of water at the local level has been taken up big time. So I think government is on the right path, but again, it has a social factor linked to it. So it has to be a community driven along with the support from the public, government. We have to go all the way. But I think there are initiatives being taken. I know the data which you tell is alarming, but I think initiatives have been taken, and let's see how effective those initiatives are.
Definitely. So Arjun joined us. Arjun, please ask your question.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. So, sir, you have earned various scholarships, almost at all levels. Inspired by your profile, I did some research about the scholarship programs offered by Government of India. What skills should we develop in ourselves to get through these scholarship programs, and what kind of preparation we need?
Okay, good questions. So still, Government of India is very liberal. There are so many scholarships available in the government setup, and nowadays I think even private corporates are also initiating many scholarships. What preparation I have done myself is, when I went for giving this kind of exams, I have got it scholarship at the school level. I got it at the engineering college level. I got it at the PhD level. they don't look into much into the academics. They look at the general awareness, basically, right? So what this scholarship try to help you is to build you a career, but they don't know what career you'll be choosing, right? So they try to help you by putting you in a good college, but they don't know, you'll be taking up science or arts or in engineering, what field engineering, civil engineering or mechanical or computers, you don't know that, right? So when this kind of scholarships are being uh, given out in the market for competition, uh, in my case, I appeared examinations, right? So in the examination, what my understanding was, it was more of a general awareness and getting knowledge of the general knowledge and aptitudes, basically, because because the scholarship providing agency, may it be government or a private, they are not the domain experts or subject experts. They try to look at people who are capable, smart, and have aptitudes. So they look more into the aptitudes, your general awareness, and more focus into that.
Okay.
Sir, since your bachelor's degree was not from an IIT, did that impact your career anywhere? Is it really important to get into IIT or are skills more important?
That was a very interesting topic. I think Saurabh must recall we had a long talk about the
Yeah.
IIT. So, Arjun, if you count today in India, there are so many successful businessmen, so many successful administrators in the government sector, so many technocrats. All of them are not from IITs, right? IIT is not the only solution, right? IIT is no doubt very good. If you get into IIT, it's excellent, no doubt about it. But it is not that if you don't go into IIT, your career is finished. There are many what do you call people without IIT are successful today, and nowadays there are many good institutions uh, in parallel with IIT. Even in private sector, private engineering colleges are there. Even the regional engineering colleges are there. These are excellent, right? So the only thing is, my advice to you is, and what I have done in my life is, don't try to mug up and learn things by heart. Try to get your fundamentals as clear as possible, right? So in my whole life, whenever there is an maths formula or a physics formula, I never, mug up. I try to get to the fundamental, why this and why this is coming. As long as your fundamentals are clear, because uh, once you go out of the engineering colleges, it's about application. So when you go into the market and when you apply, when you find solution, they are not going to see that the solution has been given by a person from IIT or a person from a regional engineering college or from any other private engineering college. They will look at how the solution has been prescribed. Right. So IIT, no doubt, is good, but it's not the end that if you don't go into IIT, your career are finished. I think Mitul, if you recall back and if the recording, just have a look at, I think 10, 15 minutes ago, we had a long debate on the IITs. You have a look at that.
Yeah, Arjun, we spoke, maybe you missed that part.
Yeah.
We were talking about your number of IITs.
Said, I'm giving you 25 minutes. From A to Z, आप thesis बताइए, ठीक है? What was the lacunae in your thesis? ठीक है? What was the constraint? आपने क्या application किया है? What is your finding? ठीक है? Thesis is all about application. And you know what? The people from regional engineering college who have been taught by professors all aged professors with good fundamentals. They were able to tell the fundamentals. The IIT were saying, sir, हमने computer modeling कर दिया है ये. You know, they will talk about the modern technology, but I was more interested in the basic engineering fundamentals. Right. So what I'm trying to say, Arjun, is, you know, it doesn't matter where you go, but make your fundamental right. Because you, when you come out, when you start applying in the field, it's all about applications. Right. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
also,
so thank you, Arjun.
Arjun, we have
Thank you.
another example. Sorry, Saurabh,
Yes, sir.
as Arjun left. Okay. Can we get Arjun back?
Okay, so let me check. In the meantime, we have Ashima with us.
Yeah.
So Ashima, you can ask your question.
Good evening, sir. So my
Evening.
first question is that you are actively involved in National Ganga River project, but still the Ganga River is being polluted by untreated industrial waste and sewage. But government claims that the purification of river is improving. So my question is that how close are these government claims? And the lockdown period has improved the purity of the river much more than this Ganga River project. So what do you say, sir?
Arjun, that's a very, very hidden question. I wish I would have asked that question.
So first of all, I was earlier involved in the Ganga project earlier, but recently I have been shifting to other projects. But I have been following up with many of my colleagues and people involved in the project. So I don't know about what the government take or my organization take. It's my understanding what I'm going to answer. Ashima, when we talk about cleaning river Ganga, there are many aspects to it. ठीक है, एक तो pollution आ रहा है many of the townships. ठीक है, pollution आ रहा है, बड़े बड़े township है, इलाहाबाद है, कानपुर है, वाराणसी है. There are many townships where a lot of pollutions are coming in. In addition to that, there are many factories and all discharging pollutants over there. ठीक है. In addition to that, a lot of people doesn't understand is that there's a huge agricultural land. जो भी फर्टिलाइजर यूज होता है, जो भी इंसेक्टिसाइड यूज होता है फार्म लैंड पे, वो भी लीच होके गंगा रिवर में आते हैं. ठीक है. सो इट्स ए कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चरल वेस्ट, डोमेस्टिक सीवेज एंड इंडस्ट्रियल वेस्ट व्हिच इज ऑफ इनॉर्मस क्वांटिटी. ठीक है. सो दो तरीके से क्लीन होता है. एक तो ये तीनों जो वेस्ट हो रहा है इसको ट्रीट कीजिएगा आप. ट्रीटमेंट बिफोर यू डिस्चार्ज इनटू द रिवर, यू डू दिस ट्रीटमेंट इन सीवेज ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट जो बोलते हैं, देन यू डिस्चार्ज ए मच क्लीनर वाटर इनटू द रिवर. ठीक है, एक ये प्रोसेस है. दूसरा है डाइल्यूशन, क्योंकि आप गंगा रिवर आप जरूर जाना देखने के लिए. हरिद्वार ऋषिकेश के बाद पूरा फ्लो खत्म हो जाता है, पूरा पानी जो है डाइवर्ट हो जाता है. ठीक है. सो दो तरीके हैं पोल्यूशन को एवॉइड करने के लिए. एक तो पोल्यूशन जाने से कम करो, या तो अगर पोल्यूशन आता है फ्रेश वाटर ज्यादा देके उसको डाइल्यूट कराओ. देयर आर टू वेज टू डू इट. ठीक है. सो नॉर्मली वी आर, आई थिंक माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग इज in both the areas there is lacunae in the approach. Maximum of the water river जो गंगा river में flow हो रहा है, ठीक है, for other uses agriculture and other, हरिद्वार से divert होके चले जाता है. river में flow बहुत कम होता है, इसलिए dilution जो है बहुत कम हो जाता है. ठीक है. और second से जो sewage treatment plant जो बहुत सी एरिया में लगाया गया है, उसका फंक्शनल कैपेसिटी इज आल्सो वेरी लेस. ठीक है. इसलिए व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट क्लीनिंग रिवर गंगा, इट इज ए मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी अप्रोच. इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे भी है, ठीक है, म्युनिसिपल कमीशन लेवल में भी है, इंजीनियरिंग कम्युनिटी में भी है. सो देयर आर मेनी एक्टर्स इन्वॉल्व इन इट. I know a lot of people have questions on how clean the Ganga is so far after so much investment. But again, it's a very subjective thing. Government are taking up steps to ensure that sewage treatment जो भी जहाँ जहाँ बड़े सिटी है वहाँ पे सीवेज ट्रीटमेंट प्लान बनाने की बहुत कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स जा चले गए हैं और बनाना शुरू कर दिया है, but many of them are not operational. Still, they are in the construction phase. There are a lot of works going on for releasing more water to dilute it. If you look at, Saurabh, I cannot remember the time where जो गंगा में स्नान लेते हैं. I cannot remember. If you can, Mitul, can you help me?
The dip in the Ganga.
The dip in the Ganga. जो holy Ganga स्नान में जो holy time जो होता है, I cannot remember. Sorry for that. So during that time, millions of people, आशिमा आप रिसर्च करना, millions of people नहाने के लिए आते हैं, ठीक है? उस समय क्या होता है? Government has a mechanism to release huge amount of water. जो ऊपर में डैम्स बना के रखे हुए barrages, वहां से huge amount of water release होते हैं, ठीक है? उस समय the pollution level is very less in spite of million of people having dip. The pollution level is very less because huge amount of water to dilute the pollution is released from this dam. So उससे भी बहुत कम हो जाता है. So there is a big challenge with the government कि demand of water for various uses, agriculture है, हमारा drinking water है, in the Ganga is very high. Okay, at the same time there is a big demand from the Ganga. जो गंगा का वाटर है उसको हम environmental e-flow बोलते हैं, environmental flow. Basically, environmental flow is something, a flow which is maintained in a river to maintain its health, so that it doesn't get degraded or polluted. ठीक है? जो environmental flow का concept है, it's recent in India. इसलिए in Ganga we don't have this concept of maintaining environmental flow. So there's a big research going on by the government. इसमें many renowned professors are also involved to find out what should be the minimum flow in Ganga so that it cleans itself. Those kind of works are going on. I know visibility in the ground is not there. इसीलिए we are not able to see much of a change coming in, but a lot of initiative behind are ongoing, and this cleaning are not done in one day. आप Thames River है UK में और Murray Darling River है ऑस्ट्रेलिया में. So management of this, cleaning of this, ये मिसाल है. हर एक आप वाटर मैनेजमेंट किताब में इसका लिखा जाता है. Thames took 18 साल and Murray Darling took 25 years. So these are not done in one day. And to your point about during the COVID, Ganga and Yamuna becoming very clean is excellent because COVID के कारण क्या है? None of the commercial factories हो, ठीक है, tannery हो, industrial unit हो, domestic का जो sewage का inflow है, वो एकदम zero है. ठीक है, फैक्ट्री से पोल्यूशन नहीं आ रहा है रिवर पे क्योंकि फैक्ट्री बंद पड़ा हुआ है, टैनरीज बंद पड़ा हुआ है. That is the main reason why during this COVID time the quality, the improvement in the quality of Ganga and Yamuna is happening. ठीक है, so there is a people have to be patient over here that cleaning of Ganga cannot be done in 1 or 2 years. It's an ongoing process, and it is a lesson from many of the countries where it has been done. It takes ages. In Australia, Mitul, for Murray Darling Basin, which is flowing through their main cities, the Prime Minister who initiated, he said in the Parliament, let's stop everything in the sun except for Murray Darling Basin for the next 10 years. Let's give the technocrat and the engineer what is needed to be done scientifically to rejuvenate this. Let we as a politics let's not talk about this river for next 10 years. That was the political will the then Prime Minister put forward.
So
Okay,
you mean to say we need another 4 years of Mr. Modi to clean the Ganges?
No. No, it's not about that. It's not that political. But the idea, what I'm saying is, when we talk about the cleaning of such a huge river, which so thickly populated, there's a human factor to it, there's a social factor to it, there's a religious factor to it, there's a political factor to it, and there's an economic factor to it, and there's a technical factor to it. There's so many factors involved in the cleaning of Ganga. That's why it's very difficult to go ahead. And sometimes it flows through many states. And Saurabh मैंने जो interstate कभी बोला था, what UP agrees, West Bengal doesn't agree and Bihar doesn't agree. So there are issues in that also. So this is a very complex environment that our engineers are doing, and a lot of initiative. My understanding is that a lot of initiatives are taking place, but it's better to give them some time and see how it comes up with.
And to clarify what you were talking about, suddenly struck me, is the Kumbh you were talking about. You were talking about...
Yes, the Kumbh Mela. So Kumbh Mela में क्या होता है? Normally गंगा में उतना flow नहीं रहता है, पर in Kumbh time there's a huge reserve water store किया जाता है, and it is released during the Kumbh time. So जितना भी pollutant है इसको dilute करके fresh water आ जाता है. So one way is to maintain this flow all throughout the year so that it flushes all the pollutants. But again, if you're releasing so much water all throughout the year, then that water is already reserved for many other uses like agriculture and domestic. Then we have to balance it, right? So these are the trade-off that is very, very tricky that a government has to take decisions. So that's why I'm trying to say it is a very complex, not that easy, because the human factor comes into it. Thank you, Ashim. I hope I did some justice in trying to answer your difficult question. I know this is a very difficult question, and I'm not the best person to answer this.
No, sir, it was a nice answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashima.
Let me tell you, Raju, that we have a couple of very interesting people who have joined in. Nimai has joined in.
Ah, excellent.
Amitabh Dev and Dr. Vikas Mishra.
Okay.
So that's your popularity chart,
All right, excellent. Thanks, guys, for the support and coming in.
Yes, Saurabh, you have any questions?
Yes, sir. Let me talk. Let me take one last question from the viewer side, sir. And yeah. So, sir, there's a question from Vandana. She want to know: do we need to revise the way we do our urban town planning so as to make it more feasible for water conservation?
Exactly. This is a very important question, which is very close to my heart, and I'm trying at my work level to impose upon. Vandana, I did my town planning. My master's was in town planning with specialization on environment. In India, in town planning, we have financial factor to it. We include the land, we include the population, we include the security of that area, the law and order. These are the factors we take into consideration in town planning, but not the water availability. Right? So that is one area which I've been looking at how we can improve our town planning consideration of incorporating the water availability. For example, I stay in Gurgaon, right? A lot of buildings are mushrooming enough, but I'm not very sure whether do we have water to supply to these areas. My learning from UK, when I was doing my PhD, I did work a bit, is that for any house being constructed, okay, what they do is they do the the department over there is the environment EPA, the environment department, do a water budget. Water budget is like, financial budget कि हमारे पास कितना पानी है इस catchment area में, ठीक है? Then, if an industry is coming up, they will see कि we have adequate water in this area which is unutilized that we can supply. अगर नहीं है, they will not give permit. Same with any house being constructed, okay, or any town being constructed, they have to apply for this permit, and this EPA, they will look at the water budget of that area, whether we have unused water we can supply to it. That is the consideration. So even we may have the financial backup, we may have land suitable to construct house or a town, we may have people who can buy and thrive in that area, whether we have a good law and order security area over there, still they will not go ahead because the water is not there to fulfill the growth of that particular township. In India, we do have some way of managing it, but the water audit or the water budgeting is not very robust. That is where, I'm not very sure, I'm trying to look into it. It's myself a research I'm trying to do it, is how this kind of permissions are given, how can we influence and change the way we do town planning so that the factor of water availability is input, so that, we don't have any issues. I'm really worried, like place like Gurgaon where I'm staying, we don't have a major river over here, but so many houses and colonies are mushrooming around, and I'm puzzling myself. And I once talked to the chief engineer of Haryana, and he was laughing at it. How this kind of things have been able to do it. So I think it's a very good question and very close to my heart. And I'm working at a personal level how we can influence the planning, how we do at current.
My last question to you, Raju, that we were talking about. I know you're tired, but
no, it's interesting. Some questions are very close to my heart, and your students are brilliant. Yeah.
my last question to you, in terms of what are the, we were discussing just before the conversation started. We were discussing about a lot of career opportunities and openings in the private sector as far as the water conservation resource companies are coming up. Would you like to please?
Yeah, this is excellent. When I started my career way back in 2000, water management or environment conservation, environment management was mainly a public sector domain, right? Mainly done by the government. Still, the majority of the chunk are done by the government sector, but in the recent 1 decade, career option in environment conservation or water management has been blooming in the private sector also. So what is happening is the human resources in the public sector. If you look at every state you go, the environment department or the water resource department or at the ministries, we have limited resources and we have a vast area to cover. So now they also have realized, and also the technology advancement and everything, they also have understood, and they are taking help of the private sectors, the corporates in coming in. I'm not talking about money coming in, but the knowledge coming in. So we have so many water sector consultancy firms, so many water sector construction firms, so many environment conservation firms in India today, national as well as international. Name any big international water management firm. So let me name it. We have, DHI, Delta Race, these are Dutch firm, these are Danish firm, AECOM is an American firm, SMEC, Entura, these are Australian firm, all have their sister concern or their side offices in India. So, and I was in the private sector earlier, and the requirement of the staff is enormous because there are so many projects coming in from the government. And lately the government has been giving a lot of emphasis on water and environment management. There's a lot of money being pushed aside for the conservation of environment and water from the government. This has been rolled out, but government is lack in the manpower. So they are the private sector coming in, and private sector are not even able to provide this manpower. So we are at present in India lagging in good quality environment as well as water conservation or management professionals. The unfortunate part, Nitul, is I have been working on this for last 3 years with many of the IITs, including IISc and JNU. We have purely engineering, construction-based water management, programs at master's level or undergraduate. But when we talk about conservation or management, it's a different ballgame. Okay, and none of our IITs or IISc have this kind of master's course. I had recently had a good dialogue with IISc, IIT Chennai, IIT Roorkee of introducing master's program on water management or dam management. Because when we talk about the typical engineering is what we have, the master course is the typical engineering, how to construct dam or how to construct sewage treatment plant or about that. But none offer management, water management program. When we talk about water management, we talk about the social science, we talk about the economics, we talk about financing, we talk about stakeholder consultations, we talk about all this aspect. And this has become a very important aspect in water management today. And we are working with them to come up with this kind of courses which give our professional the skill, the softer skill, not the hardcore engineer. So this kind of why we are looking into it is that we need this kind of professional in Indian water management market today, and we don't have this kind of profession. And when we go to the core, when we don't have universities and IIT not producing this kind of experts, from where we're going to get these experts? So one of my projects, I have been working with this IIT in trying to nurture them to come up with this kind of master's courses so that in the near future, we have this kind of professional in the market to help the government, ease the manpower and do a proper management and bring in the dynamic thinking, with these professionals.
Just another quick question, and it's a very cheeky one, and you can give a very cheeky answer. Raju, seeing the present situation, I mean the current scenario, how long can we survive without making an attempt to conserve water? The way things are.
I think if you look at all the data, I think Saurabh also pulled in a NITI Aayog data, right? And then I have a couple of data from National Water Commission. By 2050, right?
2050 we are safe.
No, 2050, there is one data which I have is the National Water Commission in 1999. The data says the demand of water will exceed the supply by 2050.
2050. So that's
okay.
what.
No, not only that, but that is the demand side. Okay, that is the quantity side. But India has a bigger challenge in the quality. अगर तेरे पास पानी भी है, वो potable नहीं है, polluted है, उसे क्या करोगे आप? So that's also a major factor to it. So we need to look at quality and quantity both in this aspect.
Yeah.
So yeah, So, Mitul sir, I request you to please conclude this session.
Okay, thank you for joining me, me and Saurabh, Raju, and I mean it's a great opportunity for all of us to hear from you about uh, besides careers in water conservation, uh, to also about your journey and about the way you took all those questions. Some of them were really very good and intelligent questions coming from the kids. Thank you
Exactly.
for joining me. And I mean the whole purpose of these sessions is to get into because this is a time where we've got this opportunity, exciting opportunity to get into the minds of the young ones, besides what they're learning during their classes. And it's a great opportunity. Otherwise, it's very difficult to catch hold of. I mean, you would stop taking my calls for together. I've been trying to locate you. And, thank you so
No,
much.
yeah. Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you, Mitul, for having me. And it was excellent session, and the question were even very excellent. And I would never imagine that those are coming from students at your school. I would think that this is an open debate at the national level where this kind of questions have been asked.
No, I just hope a couple of them can catch hold of you. And
You're most welcome. Hmm.
I'm not going to ask you before giving your contact details. I just hope some of them, the brighter ones, get to work with you at some point of time, and they just join you under do an internship or something. So be prepared for it. I'm sharing your number without asking you, so you can be
Please,
prepared for it. Thank you so
please
much.
share. Yeah, thank you. Share my details. They're most welcome to join. Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mitul sir. Thank you, Rajagopal sir. Thank you very much. Bye, sir. So thank you very much, viewers, for joining with us. And we will again come back with a new session as soon as possible. Till then, save water, save earth. Thank you. Thank you very much.